I'm Leah Morgan, though most people just call me Leah. At 28, I finally have my own cozy one-bedroom apartment in Santa Rosa, California, and a steady job as a digital illustrator for a mid-sized publishing house. My relationship with my parents has always been complicated, especially when it comes to finances. Every summer, they whisk my older brother Chase away on luxurious trips, Hawaii, London, once even Morocco, while I stay back home uninvited. But this year, they threw me off with something unexpected. An invitation, only with a condition I could join if I paid for everything myself. At first, I said yes. I figured maybe they were trying. But then I got a notification on my phone that stopped me cold and flipped the script entirely. If you're watching this, I'd love to know. Have you ever been treated like an afterthought in your own family? Drop a comment and hit that subscribe button while I tell you how I flipped the narrative and took back control of my future. Growing up in the Morgan household meant learning early that love and support often came with strings, especially financial ones. My parents, Helen and David Morgan, never missed a chance to remind me how much I cost them. Every school lunch, every art class, even dentist visits came with guilt attached. But things were different for Chase, who's 3 years older at 31. For him, the rules didn't apply. He got everything handed to him: weekly allowances, designer watches, even a brand new car for his 21st birthday. Me, I got lectures about financial responsibility and the value of hard work. I remember once needing new glasses. My mom sighed and said, "Leah, you need to learn how to budget," while later that same afternoon, she ordered Chase a custom leather briefcase for his internship. The annual family vacation was the most blatant reminder. Starting when I was 16, my parents began taking Chase to breathtaking destinations: Santorini, Sydney, the Amalfi Coast. I'd be left behind with my aunt, or alone in the house, while they sent me photos, captioned, "Wish you were here," and brought back a keychain or hotel soap as a souvenir. After college, I hit the job market during a downturn. I ended up back at home working gigs while sending out resumes. They charged me $700 a month in rent, nearly everything I made. Meanwhile, Chase, who had dropped out of his second master's program, lived at home completely free of charge while he figured things out. When I brought up the unfairness, my dad said, "Your brother has a future to protect. You need to learn how the real world works." It stung bad. But I didn't let it stop me. I took on weekend commissions, built an online store, and started landing steady freelance work. Slowly, my reputation as an illustrator began to grow. I poured myself into the craft because I knew no one was coming to rescue me. If I wanted a better life, I'd have to create it myself. 3 years ago, I finally landed a full-time role at Redwood Creative Studio, a small but thriving design agency in downtown Santa Rosa. The position gave me just enough financial footing to start planning my exit from my parents' house. I knew it wouldn't be quick. Every time I got close to my savings goal, life threw something at me. My old Corolla died on Highway 12. My drawing tablet short-circuited mid-client project. Then my parents bumped up my rent again, claiming utilities had gone up. It felt like trying to climb a hill made of sand. But I kept going, cutting out every non-essential, taking on night commissions, even selling prints at weekend markets. 6 months ago, I signed the lease on my very own one-bedroom apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, second floor, creaky hardwood, tiny balcony, but it was mine. The day I moved, my mom gave me a forced smile, like she'd lost her favorite bargaining chip. My dad glanced up from the paper and muttered, "Let's see how long you last without our help." Then last month, a call came that I wasn't expecting. It was a Sunday. I was meal prepping in leggings and a hoodie when my phone buzzed. Helen, my mom sounding oddly chipper. "Leah, sweetheart, we're planning this year's family vacation, Maui, this time. 3 weeks at the Hale Hana Resort. Since you're doing so well now, we thought you might want to join us." I nearly dropped my spatula. After years of being left behind, the offer felt surreal. But then came the twist. "Of course, now that you're independent," she added sweetly, "you'll need to cover your share. Flights are about $1, $300, hotels $3,600. Plus, food and entertainment, of course." The number she threw out so casually would have wiped half my condo fund. Still, a small part of me ached for the connection I'd been denied for so long. "I'll think about it," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Well, don't take too long. We need to finalize everything by Friday." That evening, I ran the numbers. Could I dip into my emergency fund, work weekends, cut back on groceries? It'd be tight, but doable. Maybe this would be worth it to finally be included. The next morning, I called her back and cautiously agreed. Perfect, she chirped. I'll have your father coordinate with the travel agent. Just send over your credit card info so we can book everything. Something about her speed made my stomach twist. Actually, I said slowly, I'd rather book my own ticket and hotel room. Just let me know the dates and I'll line it up. Don't be ridiculous, Leah. She laughed. It's easier if we do it all together. We've already spoken to our agent. After some passive-aggressive nudging, I caved and sent them my credit card details with clear instructions: one flight, one room, my portion only. Over the next few weeks, I pulled late nights on design jobs, cutting expenses wherever I could. Slowly, my excitement built. Maybe, just maybe, this trip could be different. Maybe this time I'd finally feel like part of the family. Maybe, just maybe, this was a shift. A sign that I was finally being seen not as a burden, but as an adult, an equal. I allowed myself that hope, if only briefly. Then came the notification that unraveled everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed during a project presentation at the Redwood Creative Studio office. A generic alert from my credit card company flashed across the screen: unusual activity detected. Recent charges exceed your typical spending pattern. I silenced the phone and continued the meeting, assuming it was an error or maybe a delayed posting from a freelance subscription. I told myself I'd check it after lunch. But when I finally sat down at my desk and opened my banking app, 3 more alerts had piled up. My heart dropped. In just 48 hours, over $15,000 had been charged to my account. I scrolled, my fingers cold and rigid. First-class round-trip flights to Maui, 4 of them not the single economy seat I had agreed to. Then, 3 ocean view suites at the Hale Hana Resort, all for the full 21-night stay. Spa treatments every day under my mom's name. Golf outings reserved in my dad's. A dinner cruise. Luau tickets. Chauffeur services. A luxury SUV rental. I sat frozen, watching line after line of indulgent expenses rack up. They hadn't just used my card for my share, they'd charged their entire dream vacation to it. I immediately called the credit card company. After a brief hold, a soft-voiced representative named Tracy picked up. I explained everything: how I had provided the card for my portion, only how I had explicitly told them to limit the charges. She listened quietly, then clarified in her calm tone. So your parents used the card information you gave them, but exceeded the scope of your permission. Yes, I said. I agreed to 1 economy flight, 1 hotel room, nothing more. This wasn't what I authorized. She took a breath. In this case, you have 2 options. We can flag the charges as unauthorized, which would open a fraud investigation and freeze your card immediately. Or you can accept the charges and try to recover the funds personally. Tracy said she'd seen this before. Family members pushing financial boundaries, disguising manipulation as care or tradition. As she spoke, a wave of past memories surged through me. When I was 16, my parents borrowed the $300 my grandmother gave me for a digital camera just until payday. I never saw it again. When I got my first credit card at 19, they asked to use it just for gas during a road trip. It came back maxed out with 3 months of late fees. The student loan paperwork they rushed me to sign at 21 later, I learned part of it was actually a Parent Plus loan in my name. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern: financial abuse wrapped in family loyalty. My stomach turned. I wasn't just footing the bill for their vacation. I had been paying for their life, 1 swipe at a time. I want to dispute all of the charges, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. And yes, please, freeze the card immediately. Tracy confirmed it would be done and ended the call with a kind, "Take care of yourself." I stared at my phone for a long moment, then placed it face down on my desk, my whole body pulsing between shock and fury. How could they do this to me? What part of just my share translated into over $15,000 in luxury bookings? Did they think I wouldn't notice? Or worse, did they assume I'd just absorb the cost without a fight? I needed clarity. Perspective. So I stepped outside during my afternoon break and called my best friend Alicia Grant. She'd seen the ins and outs of my family drama for years and never sugarcoated her thoughts. They did what Alicia nearly shouted after I laid it all out. Leah, that's not just shady, that's fraud. Your parents committed credit card fraud against their own daughter. I know, I whispered, suddenly ashamed of how small my voice sounded. But they're still my parents. I keep thinking I should call and confront them. Absolutely not, she shot back. Not yet. They'll just twist it, make it your fault, guilt you into canceling the dispute. You did the right thing, freezing the card and reporting it. She was right. If I confronted them now, emotional and stunned, they'd pounce, manipulate, gaslight, convince me it was all a misunderstanding. No, this time I needed to stay in control. That night, I dove headfirst into research. I read everything I could on credit card fraud, unauthorized charges, and financial boundaries within families. Turns out by providing my card only for a specified transaction, I hadn't authorized anything beyond that scope. I opened a new spreadsheet titled Vacation Fraud Evidence and began compiling. Line by line, I compared what I had agreed to versus what they'd actually charged. I created a timeline of every message, every phone call, every instruction I had sent. I even documented my conversation with Tracy while it was fresh in my head. The next morning, I received an email confirming that all charges were officially in dispute. My old card was now inactive, and a replacement would arrive in 3 to 5 business days. The moment I read that, something inside me shifted. For the first time in my life, I had said no to being used. I wasn't just hoping they'd do the right thing, I had taken action to protect myself. It felt foreign, empowering, terrifying, all at once. And then came the quiet. No calls, no frantic messages, no guilt-tripping voicemails, just silence. They don't know yet, Alicia said when I mentioned it over coffee that evening. They think it went through. They probably won't find out until the hotel calls or they try to make another charge. She was right. They had no idea I had uncovered the betrayal. No idea I was done playing the role of the dutiful daughter who cleaned up their messes. But they would soon. For now, they still believed they'd pulled it off, that once again they'd outmaneuvered me into silence and financial submission. But this time, they were wrong, and that knowledge. It gave me a power I'd never felt before. For the first time, I had acted before they could twist my arm. I had shut the door before they could wedge themselves in. Whatever storm was on the horizon, I had drawn my line in the sand. What I didn't realize was how fast that storm would hit, or how loud it would roar. The next few days passed like I was walking through fog. My parents continued texting me. Casual vacation updates, pretending everything was normal. Helen sent a cheery message Wednesday afternoon, just bought a few new swimsuits for Maui, can't wait on Thursday. David chimed in, weather looks perfect next week according to our travel agent. It'll be beautiful. I responded with vague emojis and simple acknowledgments, just enough to maintain the illusion. I debated telling them what I knew, but deep down I understood any heads up would give them time to find loopholes or excuses. And I wasn't giving them that power again. Sunday came the day of their departure. According to the details buried in those credit card charges, their flight was scheduled to leave Santa Rosa Airport at 11:30 a.m. I went into the office, hoping the distraction of work would help me focus. But it was pointless. My mind kept drifting. You okay? Leah Zoe, our UX designer, asked during our morning stand-up. You seem off. Just some family stuff, I murmured, forcing a smile. Nothing urgent. Family stuff is always something, she said with a soft shrug. Let me know if you need to step away. By 10 a.m., I was checking my phone every 5 minutes. Nothing. No calls, no angry texts. Maybe they'd found another way to cover the trip. Maybe I'd miscalculated. Then at 11:15 a.m., my screen lit up with a text from Chase at airport. Where are you? Mom and Dad said you're meeting us here. I stared at it, but didn't reply. 5 minutes later, Leah flight boards in 45. Mom's starting to panic. I silenced the phone and turned back to my dual monitor, the homepage layout blurred behind the pressure building in my chest. 11:40 a.m. My phone rang. Chase again. I declined. He called back. I declined again. Then the floodgates opened. Emergency. Something's wrong with the tickets. Dad's losing it. They're saying the payment was declined. Was your card supposed to cover this, Leah? Answer. They're refusing our boarding passes. What did you do? My hands trembled as I picked up my phone. They had no idea what hit them. And I was done pretending it was okay. I slowly typed out my reply, finally ready to speak on my terms. What do you mean? Chase texted. You said you were paying your own way. I stared at the screen as the typing dots blinked in and out. He was clearly typing and deleting, trying to find the right combination of guilt and pressure. Finally, the message came through. Are you serious right now? We're about to miss this flight. I took a slow breath and typed back. I agreed to pay for my flight and my share of the hotel. Not first-class tickets for 4 multiple ocean view suites, spa packages, golf outings, and luxury transfers. Check the charges. Over $15,000 thrown on my credit card without my consent. His response came quickly. Mom said you agreed to help with the booking. Help with booking my portion, I clarified. Not funding your entire luxury vacation. You need to fix this right now, he snapped. Dad is yelling at the gate agent. I stared at the screen for a second longer, then turned my phone off completely. I couldn't let their chaos drag me under, not while I was at work. When I finally turned it back on at lunch, I was met with a flood of notifications. 17 missed calls, 10 from my dad, 5 from my mom, 2 from Chase. And the texts? They'd turned hostile. From David, call me now. You've ruined everything with your selfishness. From Helen, I cannot believe you would humiliate us like this. At the airport, Leah. From Chase. We had to rebook using Dad's emergency card. He says you're paying him back every cent plus rebooking fees. I didn't reply. I just texted Alicia, it's happening. Total meltdown. Her reply was instant. Stay strong. You did nothing wrong. Want me to come over tonight? Yes, please, I replied, feeling the weight on my chest lift just slightly. Knowing I didn't have to face this alone was something. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. My phone buzzed every 20 minutes, more calls, more guilt-laced messages. I ignored them all. By the time I packed up to leave, my head was pounding and my stomach was tight with nerves. Zoe glanced over as she grabbed her coat. Seriously, Leah, you look like you've seen a ghost. You sure you're okay? Family drama? I admitted, rubbing my temple. Escalated more than I expected. Ugh, that's the worst kind, she said, her voice kind. Do you need a ride or anything? I smiled, appreciative. Thanks. I think I just need the walk and some music. She nodded and waved. Call if you change your mind. The cool air helped, but as I turned the corner toward my apartment, something made me stop. A silver Lexus was parked across the street, a new model with a sticker from a local rental company still in the corner of the windshield. My blood chilled. No way! They must have canceled their flight after the gate agent denied boarding. They were supposed to be halfway to Maui, but as I froze on the sidewalk, the driver's door swung open, and David Morgan stepped out. There she is, my father announced loudly as soon as he spotted me on the sidewalk. The daughter who thinks it's acceptable to commit fraud against her own family. I froze mid-step. His voice echoed across the street, laced with venom and entitlement. The passenger door of the silver Lexus opened, and my mother stepped out, her expression tight with rage. Her lipstick was flawless, but her cheeks flushed beneath the makeup anger written plainly on her face. From the back seat, Chase climbed out slowly, his posture uncertain. He didn't look angry, just cornered as usual, already falling in line behind them, like he always did. What are you doing here? I managed to ask, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Weren't you supposed to be on your way to Maui? We would be? My mother snapped, if you hadn't deliberately sabotaged our vacation out of spite. I exhaled sharply, thankful this was happening outside instead of inside my apartment. There was air out here, distance. I didn't sabotage anything, I said calmly. I stopped unauthorized charges. You used my credit card without permission. You agreed to help with the bookings, my father shouted, stepping forward aggressively. I instinctively took a step back. I agreed to cover my portion, not $15,000 in first-class ticket spa packages and luxury rooms for everyone. We were doing you a favor, including you, my mother hissed, her voice rising. Across the street, my neighbor Eliza was returning from walking her dog. She paused, eyes narrowing. "Everything okay, Leah?" she asked gently. I almost dismissed her out of habit, but then I changed my mind. A witness might be useful. "Just a family disagreement," I said loud enough for my parents to hear. My father's voice dropped immediately, his head swiveling to glance around. "We need to talk about this inside. Now." "No," I replied, crossing my arms. "We can talk right here, or not at all." Chase stepped forward, ever the middleman. "Leah, we're all upset. Let's not do this out here. Let's just go inside and figure it out calmly." "There's nothing to figure out," I said. "And none of you are coming into my apartment." My mother's fury shifted instantly into teary-eyed guilt. "After everything we've sacrificed for you, this is how you treat us. You humiliate us at the airport, ruin our vacation. The vacation you tried to make me pay for without my consent." I cut in. "We were going to pay you back?" my father muttered for the first time, suggesting repayment. "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow. "When?" "Because I'm still waiting on the $3,000 you borrowed from my first tax refund 5 years ago." Chase blinked, clearly stunned. "Wait, what?" My father's face turned red. "That was different. That was a family emergency. It's always a family emergency when you want my money," I said. "But I'm never family when it comes to vacation support or anything else." From above, I heard a sliding glass door. Mr. Ramirez, who lived on the first floor, had stepped onto his balcony, watching silently. 2 women from the apartment building across the street slowed as they passed, eyes flicking toward the tension unfolding on the sidewalk. My mother noticed the growing audience and shifted tactics. Her voice dropped to an urgent whisper, the dramatics giving way to manipulation. "You've put us in an impossible situation, Leah," she said. "We had to use your father's emergency credit card to salvage the trip. It's nearly maxed out now." "That's not my problem," I said flatly. A flicker of guilt stirred in my stomach, but I crushed it. That was their game. Make reckless choices, then drop the consequences at my feet and call it family responsibility. "You will reimburse us," my father said, arms crossed. "Every penny, including the rebooking fees. That's over $17,000. I blinked, stunned. "Are you serious? You used my credit card without permission, booked a luxury vacation for 4, and now you want me to pay you back?" "It wasn't fraud," my mother snapped. "You gave us your card information." For my share, only I reminded her. That's why the credit card company had no issue freezing the card and launching an investigation. They agreed it was fraud. David's face darkened. "You reported us." "I reported unauthorized charges," I replied. "Which is what they were." Helen gasped like I'd slapped her. "Do you have any idea what this could do to our credit?" I shrugged. "Maybe you should have thought about that before misusing my card." Chase stepped in, then edging between us, trying to smooth things over like he always did. "Okay, can we all just calm down? Leah, maybe there was some miscommunication about what you were covering." "There was no miscommunication," I said firmly. I spelled it out clearly. Were they clear with me? My mother's eyes narrowed and she switched tactics again, her tone suddenly wounded. "We've supported you your whole life, Leah. One family vacation is the least you could do to repay us." "Supported me?" I scoffed. "You charged me rent when I made $9 an hour. You made me buy my own school supplies in high school while buying Chase a brand new car. You left me behind on vacations for a decade, and now I'm selfish because I won't finance your resort getaway?" My father stepped in close, dropping his voice to a menacing whisper. "You'll regret this. If you think you can cut us off and humiliate us in public, you're wrong." I didn't flinch. "Are you threatening me?" I asked loud enough for Mr. Ramirez and Eliza to hear from nearby. David recoiled slightly, realizing the attention he'd drawn. "We're leaving." "But this isn't over." They turned back toward the car. My mother paused before opening the door, her voice dripping with righteous bitterness. We raised you better than this, Leah. I don't know what happened to make you so selfish and so ungrateful. I didn't respond. I just stood, still tired, yes, but unshaken. They climbed back into the rental car, and just before the door shut, Chase gave me one last look, half guilty, half confused. Then he disappeared behind the tinted glass. As the Lexus pulled away from the curb, I stood frozen on the sidewalk, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. My palms were slick, my knees shaky. Eliza stepped forward carefully. "Are you okay?" That looked intense. "Family drama," I said weakly, my voice thin. "But I'm okay." She gave me a soft nod. "If you need anything, I'm in 3B. Confrontations like that, especially with family, can really take a toll." "Thanks," I managed, before finally climbing the stairs up to my apartment. I locked the door behind me, then double-checked it. My hands were still trembling as I called Alicia to tell her what happened. "They showed up at your apartment," she gasped. "After trying to steal 15 grand from you, Leah, that's unhinged. Please tell me you're reporting them to the police." "For what, yelling at me on a public sidewalk?" "No," she said sharply. "For fraud. They used your credit card without permission. That's actual prosecutable fraud." I let out a long sigh. "I don't want to get them arrested, Alicia. I just want them to go away. At least talk to your landlord about a camera," she insisted. "If they were mad enough to cancel a Hawaiian vacation just to confront you, who knows what else they'd do." She wasn't wrong. After we hung up, I drafted an email to my landlord, Kenneth, explaining that I'd had a concerning encounter with family members and wanted permission to temporarily install a door camera. He responded within the hour, surprisingly helpful. Not only did he grant permission, he said he'd ask building maintenance to install proper hallway cameras the next day. That small act of support felt like a lifeline. Later that evening, my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something nudged me to pick up. "Leah, it's your Aunt Marcia, your mom's sister." We weren't particularly close. She lived on the East Coast and had always stayed on the fringe of family functions. But she'd never been unkind. I hesitated. "Hi. Everything okay? I just got the oddest phone call from your mother," she said. "She said you committed fraud against the family and ruined their vacation out of spite." "Let me guess," I said. "I'm an ungrateful daughter who betrayed them after everything they've done for me," pretty much Marcia admitted. "But it didn't sound like you. So I figured I'd hear your side." I told her everything from the years of financial manipulation to the unauthorized charges. There was a long pause. "That sounds exactly like my sister," she finally said. "She did the same thing to me in college. Opened a credit card in my name, racked it up, denied it, then played the victim." "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, Leah." Her understanding caught me off guard. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Thank you," I said. "Most of the family will probably just believe whatever story they spin." Probably Aunt Marcia agreed. "But just know I see exactly what's happening, and I'm on your side. Don't let them manipulate you into taking responsibility for their actions." After we hung up, I felt a little more grounded. Just having one family member acknowledge the truth made a difference. That night, as I got ready for bed, I checked every window and door twice. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, allowing only calls from Alicia and Kenneth, my landlord, to come through. I told myself the worst had passed. I couldn't have been more wrong. The next day was calm. No angry voicemails, no frantic texts, not a peep from Helen David or even Chase. Work was productive. Zoe and I made real headway on our website redesign. By evening, I'd almost convinced myself they'd given up. Maybe the airport scene, the sidewalk showdown, it had all been their last gasp. I stopped at the market near my building and took my time choosing ingredients for dinner: rigatoni, garlic cherry tomatoes, fresh basil. Comfort food, something warm to match the cautious hope I was feeling. Earlier that morning, Kenneth had emailed me the hallway security cameras had been installed as promised. That knowledge added another layer of safety. Maybe this was finally over. But as I turned the corner into my hallway, grocery bags in hand, I felt my stomach lurch. My apartment door was open, not just unlocked ajar. The wood around the frame was splintered. I stopped mid-step. The hairs on my arms stood up. Someone had forced their way in. Carefully, I set my grocery bags down, pulled out my phone, and was about to dial 911 when I heard them. It has to be here somewhere. My mother's voice rang out casual and unhurried. She always keeps her documents in that color-coded file system. Sandra, hurry up, my father said, nervous. We shouldn't be here. I still don't think this is a good idea, Chase muttered, voice low. My parents and brother were inside my home. The violation hit me like a wave, hot, sharp, and total. I didn't hesitate. I shoved the door open with force, making all three of them jump. My living room was a mess, my filing box ripped open on the coffee table, papers strewn across the rug. What the hell are you doing in my apartment? I snapped. They froze. My mother barely looked up from the paper in her hand. Don't be so dramatic, Leah, she said, as if I'd walked in on her folding laundry. We're just trying to find the credit card statements to straighten this out. You broke into my home. Her tone didn't change. We're your parents. My father avoided my eyes. Chase looked like he wanted to disappear. And I'd never felt so betrayed. Or so angry. If you've ever had to stand up to the very people who were supposed to protect you, you know how hard it is to choose yourself. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because when Leah finally takes back her power, it's a moment you won't want to miss. We have a right to be here. My father insisted, though his eyes kept darting nervously toward the open door behind me. No, I said coldly. You really don't. This is breaking and entering. It's a crime. Chase at least had the decency to look visibly uncomfortable. He glanced between me and the mess of papers on the coffee table, clearly regretting every second of this. Leah, he said gently, we just need to figure out the financial stuff. Mom and Dad think there might have been a misunderstanding about the charges. There's no misunderstanding. I cut in, pulling out my phone. And if you don't leave immediately, I'm calling the police. My mother scoffed. You wouldn't actually call the police on your own parents. But I already was. I dialed 911, pressed speaker, and held the phone out. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a break-in, I said loud and clear. At my apartment. The intruders are still here. I gave them the address. Are you in a safe location? The dispatcher asked. I'm in the hallway, I replied. The intruders are my parents and brother. They forced their way into my apartment without permission. That got their attention. My mother went pale. My father stepped forward. Hang up the phone, Leah. You're overreacting. Sir, please stay where you are, the dispatcher said firmly. Having heard him. Officers are en route. Ma'am, can you safely exit the apartment? Yes, I said, backing into the hallway. I pulled the door mostly shut. I'm out now. This is ridiculous, my mother snapped from inside. We're just retrieving what's rightfully ours. Nothing in that apartment belongs to you, I shouted back through the door. And you had no right to break in. We're your family. Leah, my father yelled, you can't just cut us off when we need you. The dispatcher stayed on the line until the police arrived, just over 7 minutes later. 2 officers, a woman named Officer Chin and her partner. Officer Martinez approached calmly but alert. Ms. Morgan, Officer Chin asked. I nodded. Yes, I'm the one who called. My parents and brother broke in. They're still inside going through my documents. Officer Martinez moved to the door and knocked hard. Police. Everyone inside, come out with your hands visible. There was shuffling. Then the door creaked open. My parents stepped out first, followed by Chase, his head down. My father tried to take control, his voice smooth and authoritative. Officers, this is a simple family disagreement. We were just trying to talk to our daughter. Officers, this is a misunderstanding. My father said, his tone shifting to the smooth, practiced authority he always used in uncomfortable situations. We were just here to check on our daughter. By breaking her door? Officer Chin asked, pointing to the splintered door frame with an arched brow. We thought she might be in trouble. My mother added quickly, clearly improvising. She wasn't returning our calls. We were worried. So, worried you started digging through her financial records? I said, gesturing toward the scattered documents on my coffee table. Officer Martinez turned to me. Ms. Morgan, Would you like to press charges for the break-in? My parents immediately tensed their defensiveness, cracking into alarm. She won't do that, my father scoffed. We're family. I took a deep breath. Actually, I said, my voice calm and solid. Yes, I do want to press charges. My mother gasped. Leah, after everything we've done for you, you mean like using my credit card to charge over $15,000 without my consent? Or breaking into my apartment or rifling through my private documents? The officers exchanged a meaningful glance. Officer Chin looked back at me. You mentioned credit card fraud. Yes, I confirmed. I gave them my card details for a specific purchase, just my portion of a trip. They used it to book a full luxury vacation for 4. That's what triggered all of this. We'll document that as a separate report, Officer Martinez said, scribbling in his notepad. But right now, we're addressing the break-in. Chase finally stepped forward. Leah, please don't do this. They're our parents. And that's supposed to make it okay? I asked. To break in. To steal. To trample my boundaries every time they don't get what they want. The officers began collecting statements. My parents spun their version, claiming they were retrieving family documents. I told the truth, including yesterday's confrontation and the repeated financial exploitation. After several minutes, Officer Martinez looked up. We're going to need everyone to come down to the station to complete formal reports. Ms. Morgan, since this is your residence, you can choose to have these individuals removed right now. Yes, I said without hesitation. I want them out. My voice didn't crack. Not even a little. You can't be serious, my mother said, her voice breaking. Where are we supposed to go? I assume you booked a hotel after canceling your flight to Maui, I replied. Or go home. Just not here. The officer supervised as my family was escorted out of the building. Before leaving, Officer Chin inspected the damage to my door. You won't be able to lock this properly tonight. Do you have somewhere safe? You can stay. I called Alicia, who didn't hesitate to offer her spare room. The officers waited as I packed a bag and secured anything valuable. As we walked out, Officer Chin handed me her card. The report will be available tomorrow. Call us if anything changes. You'll need this for your insurance, and potentially for a restraining order if you decide to pursue one. Officer Chin said as she handed me her card. A restraining order, I echoed. The idea hadn't even crossed my mind. Against my own parents. It's not uncommon in situations like this, she replied gently. When family members repeatedly violate boundaries, legal protection can become necessary. By the time the officers dropped me off at Alicia's apartment, I felt completely hollow. I sank into her couch in a daze, trying to absorb the fact that my parents had broken into my home while I was still reeling from them, charging thousands to my credit card without consent. They actually broke in, Alicia asked again, handing me a glass of wine. I can't believe they went that far. I can, I said softly. This is who they've always been. I just never pushed back until now. Later that night, Kenneth emailed me security footage from the hallway cameras installed earlier that week. The video clearly showed my parents and Chase forcing open my apartment door. He also assured me that maintenance would replace the door with a reinforced frame and install extra locks at no cost to me. I forwarded the footage to my personal email for safekeeping, then hesitated before checking my phone. Buried among angry messages from my parents were several missed calls and one unexpected text from Chase, sent after they'd been removed by police. I'm sorry, Leah. I didn't know they planned to break in. I should have stopped them. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd received. I didn't respond. I didn't have the energy. Instead, I powered off my phone, slipped into the pajamas Alicia offered, and accepted the sleeping pill she gently placed in my hand. The weight of what had happened, the betrayal, the boundary I had finally drawn, settled into my chest. Nothing would ever be the same. The week that followed moved in a blur. Maintenance repaired my door with additional reinforcements and locks. I filed formal reports detailing both the break-in and the credit card fraud. At Alicia's suggestion, I met with a lawyer, her brother's colleague, who reviewed my case and advised me on next steps if I wanted to pursue restitution. I returned to work midweek, clinging to routine. I kept explanations. Vague family emergency was all I said, and that was enough. Zoe and a few coworkers offered quiet support, giving me space without prying. I hadn't heard a word from my parents since the night they were escorted out. According to the officer I followed up with, they'd checked out of their Santa Rosa hotel the next day and were presumed to have returned home. The silence was both a blessing and an eerie shift after years of their constant interference. What I didn't expect was the quiet network of support that emerged, starting with Alicia, who had held me together through the worst of it. Her kindness reminded me that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's defined by who shows up. My landlord, Kenneth, went above and beyond. Not only did he replace my broken door, but he had a full security system installed in my unit, motion sensors, camera doorbell, even reinforced locks, all at his own expense. I've had family issues myself, he told me quietly. Everyone deserves to feel safe at home. Meanwhile, Aunt Marcia called every day from the East Coast. Her support was steady and sincere, and her stories painted a clearer picture of my mother's past. "Your mom did this to our parents too," she shared one afternoon. "Opened credit cards in their names when she was barely out of college. They never reported it. I think that's what taught her she could get away with things." Even my neighbor Eliza, who had witnessed the sidewalk confrontation, left a small care package outside my door. Inside was a box of herbal tea, a bar of dark chocolate, and a handwritten note that read, "If you ever feel unsafe or need help, don't hesitate to knock on 3B. But the most surprising gesture came 6 days after the break-in. Chase called. I almost declined the call, but curiosity won out. "Leah, are you okay?" His voice was quieter than usual, uncertain, stripped of the usual echo of our father's tone. "I'm managing," I replied cautiously. "I'm so sorry about everything. I should never have gone along with it." After they screamed at each other in the hotel over money, I realized just how deep it went. I stayed silent, waiting to see whether this was guilt or another manipulation. "I've been thinking about what you said," he continued, "how they treated you differently. I didn't want to see it before, but it's been happening to me too. That made me sit up straighter. How financial stuff mostly. Dad's been managing my trust fund from Grandma's estate, but when I asked for statements, he snapped. Refused. "Wait, you have a trust fund?" I asked, stunned. "From Grandma Morgan. You should too. According to her will, we were each supposed to get equal shares when we turned 25. I felt the air leave my lungs. Grandma had passed when I was in college. No one had ever mentioned a trust fund. Not once. They never told me anything, I said slowly. "That's really concerning," Chase replied. "Because if it's true, they may have been hiding or using your portion this whole time." I scribbled a note to ask my lawyer at our next meeting, but Chase wasn't finished. "There's more. I think Mom and Dad are in serious financial trouble. I overheard them arguing after we left your apartment. Something about a second mortgage and credit cards being maxed out. So they tried to use my card for the trip because they're broke. Yeah, I think Dad's business has been failing for years, but they've kept living like they've still got unlimited money." That conversation shifted everything I thought I knew about my family. My parents' behavior wasn't just about control or favoritism, it was about desperation. That didn't excuse anything they'd done, but it added a layer I hadn't fully seen before. They weren't just manipulative, they were drowning, and trying to drag the rest of us down with them. "What are you going to do?" "Now," I asked Chase during our call. "I'm looking for a place of my own," he said. "I've also scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor. I need to understand what's going on with the trust fund. And honestly, I need some distance from them too." After we hung up, I sat still for a long time, staring at nothing. Chase, the golden child, the peacemaker, was finally seeing the truth. It was validating, but also deeply sad. Another crack in what little was left of the family I thought I knew. The next morning, a certified letter arrived at my apartment. It was from a law firm representing my parents. The letter demanded payment of $17,000 for vacation expenses incurred on behalf of Leah Morgan, as verbally agreed. It threatened legal action if the amount wasn't paid within 30 days. I forwarded it immediately to Jacqueline Diaz, the lawyer Alicia had connected me with. Her reply came within the hour. "This qualifies as harassment," she wrote. We'll issue a cease and desist covering both this financial demand and any further direct contact. She also noted the trust fund issue. Given your brother's statement, we should formally request all documentation related to your grandmother's estate. The legal wheels began turning quickly. Jacqueline drafted and sent letters outlining the credit card fraud, the break-in, and the potential mishandling of inherited funds. She also helped me file for a temporary restraining order, which was granted pending a formal hearing. But while the legal side gained momentum, the social fallout grew. My parents had begun spreading their version of events, painting me as ungrateful, unstable, dramatic. Soon, awkward messages started arriving from distant relatives. "Your mom is heartbroken," one distant aunt messaged. "Surely this is a misunderstanding. Family should resolve things privately, not with lawyers." Another added, "After all they've done for you." "This feels like betrayal." I didn't respond. Jacqueline had advised me to avoid discussing anything publicly while legal matters were ongoing. Still, it was painful watching people I barely knew take sides based on half-truths and manipulations. Not everyone believed them. Taylor, my cousin and Aunt Marcia's daughter, called unexpectedly. "Mom told me everything. Just so you know, none of us are shocked. Your mom pulled similar stunts with us years ago. We believe you." And then, in a move that caught me completely off guard, I received a quiet, respectful email from Uncle Greg, my dad's younger brother. "Your father and I haven't been close since he borrowed money from our parents' retirement fund without their knowledge." Uncle Greg wrote in his email, "I suspect what you're experiencing isn't new behavior. Stay strong, Leah. Protect yourself." These quiet revelations, pieces of family history I had never been told, helped shift something in me. This wasn't about me being difficult or selfish or a bad daughter. This was about a pattern that had stretched across generations. I just happened to be the first to say no. 3 weeks after the break-in, I finally felt safe enough to move back into my apartment. Between the new door, the reinforced locks, the upgraded security system, and the temporary restraining order, I had a sense of control I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Maya Winters, a specialist in family trauma and financial abuse. "What you're describing," she said in our second session, "is a classic case of multi-generational exploitation. The fact that you recognized it and protected yourself shows not weakness, but tremendous strength." "I still feel guilty," I admitted. "Like I've broken the family." You didn't break anything," Dr. Winters replied gently but firmly. "You stopped participating in what was already broken. The discomfort your family's feeling. That's not your fault. It's just the natural result of a toxic dynamic finally being disrupted." As April turned into May, I received a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Angela, a cousin on my mother's side who now lived in Vermont. "I heard through Aunt Marcia. What happened?" she said after a brief introduction. "I just wanted to say, you're not crazy. You're not alone. They did the same thing to me when I was in college. That's why I moved across the country and changed my number." "How did you deal with the guilt?" I asked. I was desperate for insight from someone who'd already walked away. "Time," she said thoughtfully, and realizing the guilt wasn't real, it was installed in me to control me. "You were taught that boundaries are selfish, but they're not. That belief just served them, not you." That conversation changed something in me. Between Angela, Aunt Marcia, and even Uncle Greg, I realized I hadn't cut ties with my family. I was building new ones with people who believed in mutual respect, not control. In early June, Chase called. "I got the trust fund paperwork," he said. "Leah, there was a trust in your name, equal to mine. But 5 years ago, it was consolidated into my account, with a signature that's supposed to be yours." My stomach dropped. "I never signed anything like that." "I didn't think so," Chase said quietly. "I already sent everything to your lawyer. From what the advisor could tell, it looks like they forged your signature to access your trust." Jacqueline flagged it immediately. This wasn't just unethical. It was criminal. She said we had enough for both a civil claim and potential criminal charges if we pursued them. And with that, the final piece of the puzzle snapped into place. My parents hadn't just manipulated me or used guilt as leverage. They had committed fraud against their own daughter, repeatedly, including stealing an inheritance that was rightfully mine. As hard as the truth was, to swallow it also brought an unexpected sense of clarity. The boundaries I'd fought to set weren't cruel or excessive, they were necessary, and they were long overdue. 6 months after the credit card incident that ignited it all, my apartment finally feels like a sanctuary. The reinforced door and security system that once reminded me of fear now symbolize the life I've built on clear boundaries and self-respect. The living room where my parents once tore through my documents is now warm and rearranged, complete with a soft armchair by the window shelves of books on financial freedom, healing, and personal growth. What surprised me most was how this shift impacted my professional life. With the emotional burden of my parents no longer occupying my mind, I threw myself into my work at Redwood Creative Studio. I was promoted to senior designer last month. "Your designs have changed," my creative director told me during my review. "There's a boldness and clarity now that wasn't there before." He wasn't wrong. That clarity was starting to echo across every area of my life. Friendships deepened as I shared more of my truth. Alicia stayed my rock, but Zoe once, just a coworker, became a true friend after I opened up about what happened. Eliza, my neighbor from 3B, and I started meeting every Saturday morning for coffee and conversation. But the most unexpected relationship to evolve was with Chase. After discovering the forged signature, he decided to set his own boundaries with our parents. He moved into a small apartment across town and began working with the same financial advisor helping me. "I used to wonder why you always seem so tense about money," he admitted during one of our monthly dinners, a new tradition we'd started. "Now, I get it. Once I took control of my own finances, I realized how much they were using help as control. Our relationship still needed work. Years of being pitted against each other had created ruts, but we were slowly replacing rivalry with mutual understanding and respect." 3 months after the break-in, just after the temporary restraining order expired, my mother made her first move. An elaborate floral arrangement appeared at my office. The card read simply, "Families should always find a way back to each other." That's what the card on the flowers said. I donated the arrangement to a nearby nursing home and tossed the note in the trash. A month later, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. It was David, my father. His voice was quieter than usual, but the tone still carried that undercurrent of control I knew too well. "Leah, this has gone on long enough. Your mother is heartbroken. When are you going to put this behind us?" "When you acknowledge what you did," I replied calmly, the words practiced and prepared from sessions with Dr. Winters. "When you make amends and show that you've truly changed. We've always done what's best for you," he insisted, slipping back into his script. Sometimes kids don't understand their parents' choices until they're older. "I'm not a kid, Dad. I'm 28, I said firmly. "And using my credit card to charge $15,000 without my consent, then breaking into my apartment when I disputed it wasn't what's best for me." He sighed. "We were going to pay you back, eventually." "That's not how consent works," I said. "And that doesn't fix the broken door, or the invasion of my privacy, or the forged signature on my trust fund documents." At the mention of the trust, his tone shifted. "Chase had no right to tell you about that," he snapped. "Those were private family financial matters. My inheritance is not a private family matter." "That excludes me," I said. "It was my money." He hung up. I haven't heard from either of them directly since. Through extended family, I later learned they had sold the family home, quietly. The proceeds went toward debts, including a tax lien that had been buried for years. Their financial facade had finally cracked. The trust fund investigation moved forward. With Jacqueline's help, we uncovered that roughly $120,000 that should have gone to me had been siphoned off over 5 years. We had a strong case. Forgery, misappropriation, breach of fiduciary duty. Jacqueline was ready to go to court. "Are you sure you want to settle?" she asked when we received the offer. "You could recover more." I'm sure I told her. "This settlement is enough to build real security. And more importantly, it lets me close this chapter." Healing wasn't linear. Holidays, birthdays, and weddings were hard. Their absence was loud. But I leaned into what Dr. Winters called my chosen family, the people who showed up when it mattered. Aunt Marcia flew in for a long weekend, bringing old photo albums and family stories that didn't hurt to hear. Together we sat on my balcony under the spring sky, piecing together a version of family I could finally trust. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you," Aunt Marcia said softly as we sorted through faded photos and handwritten notes. She valued independence and integrity above all else. In those quiet hours, I found unexpected healing, not just from the past, but from what I had once believed about family. Inspired by the journey I'd taken, I enrolled in a financial literacy course to better manage the settlement I'd received. But what began as self-education soon evolved into something more. I started volunteering as a peer educator for the same program teaching financial basics to young adults from challenging family situations. Sharing my story in a safe, empowering space gave purpose to everything I had endured. Each conversation, each lesson felt like a piece of me was being stitched back together. As the 1-year mark of the credit card dispute approached, I made a decision to commemorate it, not with vengeance or sorrow, but with renewal. I booked my first solo trip, not to Hawaii, not to a luxury hotel, but to a quiet coastal town along the Northern California shoreline, one I had visited with my grandmother as a child. It wasn't about status or indulgence. It was about reclaiming joy on my own terms. This time, I didn't return with a keychain. I brought back peace and a photograph of the sea I chose for myself. The week before my departure, Dr. Winter suggested writing a letter to my parents, not to send, but to process lingering emotions. I did. In the letter, I poured out the hurt, the betrayal, the grief. But I also acknowledged the complicated emotions that still lived in me, the love mixed with anger, the longing wrapped in disappointment, the quiet hope that maybe one day they would change. I concluded with clear terms under which I might consider reconciliation, an honest acknowledgement of what they had done, a sincere apology, free of excuses, financial restitution, and consistent changed behavior over time. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of my journal. I didn't need to send it. Writing it had already given me clarity. On the morning of my flight, as I sat at the gate, sipping coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Chase. "Have a great trip. You deserve it. Also, I wanted you to know I'm starting therapy next week. Your journey inspired me." I smiled as I read it, a quiet peace settling over me. The cycle was breaking. The damage that had spanned generations was finally being disrupted. This past year had taught me that family isn't about obligation or shared DNA, it's about mutual care, trust, and respect. I had lost the illusion of what family should be, but I had gained the freedom to define what it truly meant to me. As the plane lifted off the runway and the world dropped away beneath me, I felt a weight lift too. I wasn't running away from my past. I was flying toward a future I chose. For the first time, the journey ahead was mine, and I was the one holding the map. If you've ever had to draw painful boundaries with the people who were supposed to love you most, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear how you found the strength to put yourself first. Your words might just help someone else do the same. And if my story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more stories of healing and hard-won freedom. One thing I've learned: setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel, it makes you whole. You're not selfish for choosing peace. You're wise. Hold on to that. And never let guilt keep you from living a life that finally feels like yours.